There is obviously a huge weight of capital pointed at all forms of institutional real estate, and as Andrew points out, now some less institutional ones. Retail is hard to understand for some, so the new entrants to the market, notably from Asia, would like to start with large office buildings with one tenant or two tenants, nice and simple stuff, but increasingly accessible to a lot of players, particularly in Europe.
I think there's a lot of focus around new capital sources from Asia, North America, Canada, etc. In the world of shopping centres, that's not having a big impact yet. As Andy says, that capital feels most secure investing in London, Paris, moving to German cities. It's starting to have a little bit of impact in the retail investment market in Europe, but largely through fund management groups, as represented by the gentleman on my left. I'm sure it will start to be a little bit more influential, but right now, if we're buying or selling a shopping centre in Europe, it's those investors that we all know and love very well, be it the specialist property companies, be it the fund management groups that have funds that invest in retail, or increasingly actually institutions. And I would say European institutions are probably more important and a bigger growth area, capital source within that European retail investment area than Asian capital right now. That might change, but right now.
Well, I think Andrew very appropriately picked up on the change in sentiment that we've seen, and that's clearly important. And I think from an investor perspective, I think the other thing that's starting to happen is that two or 3 years ago, everyone was talking about structural change in the industry and the not quite the death of the high street or death of shopping centres, but certainly there was a lot of concern about how they can operate and how they can grow. And I think people are beginning to see how retail is more than simply getting people into shops, that now we're seeing omni-channel property develop, that the physical property still has a very important role. And having got comfortable with that story, people are getting more comfortable with going back into the retail sector, having been a little bit worried about the story of structural change over the last couple of years.
When we were raising money in 2010 and 11, all of this was the contrary, right? You had a very, very repressed consumer market. You had the threat of internet and e-commerce. We had to explain all of these things, and we didn't know ourselves. So we started looking into this very, very heavily. 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, we really understand what's going on. And the tenants, the retailers, have really reacted to this in a way that they are very successful online. You know, the best retailers you can have in your shopping center are very good e-commerce operators these days, right? These are the H&Ms and all of those guys. So suddenly the threat has become your ally, right? Because these guys are doing really well online too.